I've been using Morgen for years. I now currently work for Morgen, but in the past I've used ClickUp for project management, and ClickUp has a calendar integration inside of the tool. So I wanted to explore what features it has for tasks, events, and auto scheduling of tasks. In this video, I'm going to use a Google Calendar as a demo account. You can see I've got different calendars in this account, an orange calendar, a purple additional calendar, and then a personal blue calendar. And you can see I've also got a Google task that's due on Friday. That's inside of the Google Task sidebar. And then I'm using Outlook for my work schedule. So I've got stand up every day at 5:45 through till 6 from Monday to Friday. Now, when I go into ClickUp, I'm in my dashboard view here, which I might go through later. But if I click on a folder, so long form folder, I'm now in a calendar view of the tasks in that folder, not the ClickUp calendar. Same as if I was to go, you can see we've got two tasks here. If I go to ecological psychology list, I've got a calendar view of the list. So I could turn the connected Google Calendar on inside of this calendar view. And then when I go into the next view, you can see the calendar is showing. And so I would need to turn these calendars on and off individually if I wanted to see multiple calendars at once, such as my work calendar, my personal calendar, and my additional events calendar. Now I can see them all. And now I'm in the week view. You can see this task, which is inside the ClickUp list, is showing as an all-day task all the way through. I then have my work meetings, I then have my personal things, and then I have my calendar events in here as well with the task in the all day section. However, if I go to the top of ClickUp, you can see it's saying stand up, and that's saying in 2.5 hours, or in roughly 2.5 hours, I get a little hover of my calendar, the connected calendars. And when I click on it, it brings up a different calendar view. And this doesn't have those tasks from the lists or from the folders showing in this view. It is just events first. And this is the kind of view you'll see inside of Morgen. So inside of Morgen, you can see I've got my orange calendar events. I then got my work calendar events. And then I have the personal events, which you can actually see are tasks. And this is the first difference between Morgen and ClickUp. If I come into ClickUp and drag a time slot down just after, I can create an event and then save that as an event on the Google Calendar. And then if I create another slot and create that as a task, you see I get the drop-down list of where to save it. I'm going to save it in the personal list, and then I can save this. Now I should have a new event in Google Calendar and then a new task. So on Google Calendar, I can see the new event, but I don't see the new task. That isn't inside of my Google Calendar. It's not saved in my Google Calendar, and neither of those are saved in Outlook either. Whereas if I come to Morgen, let's change this event to show you that it does sync, and then create a task after this. So I can create a slot. Instead of having event, go to task, new task. At the top, you can see it says personal. I can select which calendar I want this task to save to. Now when I push save, the task has been created, and the task now shows on Google Calendar as a new task. So the new event has been updated and the new task has been created. In Morgen, it shows as a task, which when you tick off will be completed. And if we go back to ClickUp, it's very similar. So if I tick this task off, once I've gone in, go to do, and then click complete, the task is now completed, but the task was never synced to a calendar, so you can't see it on a calendar. Then just looking at the calendar view, if we go to the top right, we've got a 1-day view, we've got a 4-day view, and then there is a week view. So there isn't actually a month view in the calendar view here in ClickUp, but you can go to a view in one of the lists. So if we come into here and then go to the calendar, you can then see a month view. And then if we go to settings, we've got the show weekends option again. We can start the week on Sunday or Monday, just those 2 days, and then we can show the week numbers. So at the moment you can see at the top it's showing the week number 47. We can hide that if we want. However, inside of Morgen, if we go to the week view, we've got a day, week, month, agenda views. When I click on that, it's an agenda. If we go to the 2 weeks view, we've got a 2 weeks view, and then there's also show weekends. Just like in ClickUp, we can widen the current day or keep it the same. We can dim past events or not, show or hide completed tasks. So this new task, we can hide it because it's been completed, or we can show it. We can show or hide declined events, and then we can merge duplicate events. If, for example, we've got the same event in our work and personal calendar, they can show as one merged event rather than two. Then on the calendar preferences side, there are far more preferences, but looking at what ClickUp has, you can actually select any day of the week to be the start of the week. You can pick any initial view from agenda through down to 9 days, week, 2 weeks, or month as the initial view when you first open up Morgen. And a setting that I really like and use is the time grid start. So you can see it's starting at 8 and finishing at 12. So it doesn't actually let me scroll backwards until 8 o'clock. So if I go to the D, to day view, you see it starts at 8 and finishes at 12, whereas inside of ClickUp, I can scroll all the way to while I'm sleeping. not my personal preference. And there are shortcuts inside of ClickUp, so when I click on the arrow key to move to the next week, it will move to the next week. I can push 1 to go to the 1 day, 4 to go to 4 days, or Shift W to go to the week. Inside of Morgen, you have the same, so W for the week, Alt 1, 2, 3, 4, all the way up to 9 for the 9 days, X, D for today. But there's also something where you can zoom in. So I use the square bracket. I can now zoom in so I can see smaller tasks, or even smaller tasks. You can see 9 to 10 is now a really big block, or I can zoom out and have a bigger view of the day. Coming back to ClickUp, if I click on the 3 calendar icon, you can see I'm showing 3 calendars and I'm hiding all of the rest. And if I wanted to show the additional calendar, I tick it on. Now I can see it. If I come back up, tick it off, I'm now hiding it, which is very similar to all of the other calendar accounts like Google and Outlook. You go to the side and turn them on or off to hide those calendars. However, in Morgen, it works a bit different. If I go to the mini calendar, there's a number that can be added next to each calendar. So 0 all the way through to 9. So there's 10 what's called calendar sets. And if I push 0, it shows all of the events on all of the calendars that are in 0. If I push 1, it shows only the calendars in number 1. So the additional calendars and Marco's calendar are hidden because they don't have a 1. If I push 2, it will now show that calendar set. So it groups calendars together rather than having one individual calendar. But what you may notice is this purple event looks a little different than if we were to come to ClickUp. These events in the past are dimmed, but this event is still quite bright. And that's because ClickUp doesn't show a difference between free and busy events. So when I click here, you'll notice it's public and free. If I change this to busy and save, now this event will be busy. If I go to Google, once the event has synced, this will become busy. And you can see there it is now busy. And so when we go to Morgen, this purple event is now showing as a thicker color because it's busy. So you can visually see the difference between a busy and a free event. So if I double click and change this from busy to free and save, you can see now it's faded out. Both ClickUp and Morgen have all-day events, start and end times for events, time zones, repeated events if you want them, adding locations, conferencing links, so Zoom or Google Meets or Teams or anything like that, with alerts and reminders on these events as well. However, something I've struggled to find is how to create a recurring event inside of this ClickUp calendar experience. You can see them in the calendar if they're created on Google or Outlook, but I can't seem to find a way to create a recurring event inside of ClickUp, whereas you can in Morgen. Bringing us to the task experience. And now you might be able to see inside of ClickUp, there is actually a task in this Friday 21 all day section. If I left click, you can see there's the information. It's in progress, high priority, estimated 3 hours. And if I click on this icon at the top right, it will now expand that task in the sidebar. And so I now have a right sidebar for the task details, the main calendar in the middle, and then the left sidebar, which you can toggle shut or open. This task at the moment having a due date for tomorrow. Looking at the ClickUp calendar view with all the calendars disabled, you can see there it is, it's due for tomorrow. If we go to the list view, there it is, due date tomorrow. And when I click on it, I can edit the date information. So I'm going to add a start date for today. And when I come to the calendar, you can see it starts today and finishes tomorrow. But if I drag this down and then try and schedule it in the calendar, it doesn't let me just schedule it in the calendar because I've got the today and tomorrow dates. So what I need to do is go to the left side. I'm going to open all of these up so we can see what's actually going on. We've got the backlog, which is a list of all of the tasks inside of ClickUp that it can show. So these are the 3 tasks. We've got the Bayesian brain hypothesis, which is the one with the start date and the end date. And then I have 2 others in different lists. I then have the today and overdue section, the assigned to me section, which is this task currently up here, and then priorities. And these are personal priorities. So the fMRI machines actually comes from my personal list, which if we come back to the dashboard is where the personal list is inside of ClickUp. So if I create a new task in here, you can see we've got ecological optics, then come up into the calendar view. The task isn't being shown in the side because it's not inside of this backlog list. It hasn't been assigned to me and it's not a priority of mine yet. And so what I'll need to do is either drag it over into the priorities, or if I come to the priorities section, drop down, you can see add to personal priorities. So I can add myself in, and now it's in this sidebar. So if I take myself off, clear it out, and then drag it over into the priorities. Now when I go to the calendar view, ecological optics now appears. And from here, if I grab the Bayesian brain hypothesis, I can now schedule a slot on the calendar for this task. However, what you'll notice is if I click on this calendar, it's focus time inside of the calendar. It's not a task, it's an event. So when I come back to Google, it's scheduled an event on my personal calendar for this task. It's scheduled from 6:15 to 9:15 because there is a 3-hour estimate. If I was to drag one of the other tasks in, again, it picks that estimate and creates a block for that estimate. So if we go fMRI, it's much smaller because it's only a 1-hour estimate for this task. Again, it schedules a focus slot on the calendar for this event or task. But when I click on this event, I can't change which calendar it's on. So it's public or private, I can change, but I can't change the calendar, nor can I change the color. And it seems like what it's done is it's attached the task to this frame rather than having it be a task on the calendar. Now, if I come into Morgen, you can see those are the two blocks that have been scheduled on the calendar. So I'm going to delete that one and delete that one. And what I've got instead is if I go into the tick boxes, I've recreated those tasks inside of Morgen. So in Morgen, I've got the task list, ecological psychology, and the task list, cognitive psychology, with the exact same information on those tasks inside of Morgen. In the all day section, I've got the Bayesian brain hypothesis that's currently scheduled at the top, but instead of needing to schedule a event on the calendar, I can drag this down and say, I'm going to do this from 6, and let's say I'm going to do it from 6 till 8. If I want to see the due date of this task, I can double click, add a due date, and say it's due on Friday, save. And you can see there it is, it's due on Friday, and we've got a scheduled slot in this day. And if I wanted to, I can come to the left side, drag this task in again and say, you know what, I need to do another hour or so tomorrow as well to make sure that I get it done. So now it's been scheduled on the calendar twice as tasks. I'm showing the due date in the all day section. And if I tick it off, I can tick it off inside of the calendar, which if we go to those settings, hide completed tasks, now it's not appearing inside of my calendar view. Now this does appear on the calendar that you've synced from Morgen to Google. So you can see it's in the personal task calendar, but if I want to, I can change this from the personal to maybe the additional event. Confirm, so I can do that for each individual session, task session that's blocked. So now when I go to Google, you can see I've got more control over what calendar the session is blocked into, whether it's the additional calendar, the calendar, or the personal calendar. Something else worth noting inside of Morgen is inside of the view settings of the Morgen task, there are lots of customizations inside of these settings. So you can order by different things. You can change the direction of the order, group by task list or importance. So if I group by importance, you can see the high importance task is at the top. If we come back to task list, we could then organize by importance. So you can see I've now got ecological psychology is the group, and then I'm ordering by the importance underneath it. So if we say this one's actually high, let's save it. We've got the high importance at the top, normal importance underneath. I can hide specific task lists if I don't want to see them for a certain amount of time. I can hide or show labels, so I can get rid of the labels appearing. Due date, I can show or hide it, etc. If you don't want to see the due date on the calendar, I can turn that off. So now all the due dates have gone from the Morgen source. This is a due date from the Google Task integration. But then you can also create custom lists and save them. So personal list or work list, and they can be anything you want. So you could have an ecological psychology list, save it. So pick an icon. I'm going to go with a heart. Let's go orange, save. Now when I come back, I've got my Morgen tasks. Or I can go to the filter and go ecological psychology, just see those tasks. Which, as you can see, I've got one overdue, which is problems with the central executive. In this ClickUp calendar view, you don't have any of those viewing preferences. Those viewing preferences would be inside of the lists. So you'd come into the list, go into the calendar, then you could see the tasks on the side, or you'd go backwards and forwards between the list view, which you have more viewing, filtering, and sorting options with, then go to the calendar view. But something I haven't quite sussed with ClickUp is you can see here we've got problems with the central executive, which is overdue. If I click into it, it is due yesterday. It started 3 days ago. Inside of Morgen, it's the same. It was due yesterday, and it's showing in the overdue section. But in ClickUp, when I come to the calendar and then look at the task and overdue, the task doesn't appear as overdue. So I'm not sure what date ClickUp uses for overdue tasks. When I come into the task, it shows me this is when it was scheduled, and it does actually say, yep, look, it was due in the past. And then when I use the ClickUp auto scheduling, so if I tick the lightning icon, you can see it's suggesting times for when I do it. Then when I click on it, it's saying this is off track, this is red, and it's overdue. But I would need to be auto-scheduling that task to see that it's off track, which to me feels off. I don't know what I'm doing wrong. ClickUp users, please explain. But this brings me to the auto scheduling. You can see we've got 2 planned sessions of this task, which is right now and then tomorrow. I can't drag these around. I can't change them. If I right click, it's just the default edge right click. So these are just auto scheduled in sessions, which are not on a calendar. They're not anywhere apart from this calendar view. And if I come into here, I can change the time estimate, I can change the time tracked, I can change the due date because it brings up the information and then I can change it. But these sessions are sort of previews, I guess, suggestions. If I was to create an event, now there's a conflict, so it's going to readjust where those are, but it's scheduling them as 3 different sessions, which to me feels odd because I would expect this to be one big block and then this one is a second one, so it'd be split into 2, not 3. I'm not quite sure how that works. I can then come to the sidebar and then auto schedule in these other tasks, and you see it's scheduling them afterwards, probably because this problem with the central executive is overdue. So if I turn this auto scheduling off, it's now scheduling these 2 first, even though this problem with the central executive is overdue and I would personally want it done first. It's suggesting these because these are the ones I've turned on for ClickUp to auto schedule. When I come into the settings of ClickUp and go to the time blocking, you can see these are the schedules that it's going to use for when it's going to auto schedule work. I've got Monday 9 till 5 and then I didn't bother changing all of the others because I was lazy, and it's just 8 till 6. So each of these are individuals that you need to change manually. You can see I've taken off of Sunday, and that's why when I come into here and click the lightning, it doesn't schedule anything after the stand-up because that's 6 o'clock. So it's scheduling them tomorrow starting at 8 going through. However, Morgen does this quite differently. Instead of setting times, start and end work time in a day, you can draw out the frames of time you want to work. So if I go from 9 till 11, I can create a frame of time, call it work. You can see this is going to be stored on the personal calendar. You could store it anywhere else. And inside of this frame, I can filter tasks. So I'm going to filter tasks from the ecological psychology list that we created. And it's going to repeat every weekday, so Monday to Friday, and then I can save it. Now I have that visual work frame from Monday to Friday. I can also create another one from 1 till 6. Create a frame. I'm going to call this work as well. Go into the filtered list. I don't have a save filtered list, so I'm going to go Morgen and then go cognitive psychology because that's the other list of tasks that we have currently that we're working with, and then go save. So now I've drawn out my preferences on my calendar. I can also create some frames after that, which will be different. So I can go frame. I'm not going to add any filter, so anything. And I'm going to say that is every day because it's any day of the week. Save, and you'll notice the first frame is from the day I've created it forwards. It hasn't gone backwards in time. And now that I've set my ideal week up, I don't have to touch that again because it's saved. I push the planner button in the top right, and it's giving me suggestions of when to schedule tasks. If we do a bit of checking, the cognitive psychology is in the second work block, so the Bayesian brain hypothesis is there. I think it's going to take longer than that though, and this is where Morgen differs from ClickUp. I can right click, change the estimate and say, I think this is going to take an hour. And now it's changed that time slot because this is a suggestion. It hasn't been scheduled until I push the schedule all button. I then have the ecological psychology tasks in this work frame tomorrow, but also in the anything frame afterwards. So we've got the 3-hour split and a 1-hour split. So I can actually get this work done today, whereas ClickUp gave me a bit of a limitation there. But I actually don't want to worry about tomorrow right now, so I'm going to drag this plan ahead down. So I'm only planning today, and I only want to do 1 hour of this after stand-up. And it's going to give me some suggestions of these other tasks it wants me to do. I'm going to ignore the trampoline task there. Yeah, I think we could probably do that one. It's giving me a warning that I need to do more work on that one, so I can do that another time. I'm going to drag the buffers down, so I don't want that much space in between, and now I can schedule all. And so I now have these scheduled tasks on my calendar. If I was to push the planner button again, it's still looking at today, so if we span it out, it's now giving me that task for 3 hours tomorrow morning. So again, I'm just going to push the schedule all button, and it's done for me. If a new event comes up that maybe creates some conflict, so let's conflict that with everything else. And so now we've got a conflict, Morgan saying, hey, what do you want to do with that? Do you want to reschedule as soon as possible? Do you want to reprioritize with the AI planner? So now I've actually got some stuff on Saturday and Sunday, or do you want to unschedule those 3 tasks? And then when you push the button, so let's say I'm going to reschedule as soon as possible, it's now rescheduled those tasks. And something you may notice inside of Morgen is we've got this Google task inside of here as well, because it's in the anything frame. There's a Google task integration. And this task from the ecological psychology task list has a warning to say, hey, this is scheduled after the due date because the due date is on Wednesday. So I get a warning about that, and then I can change the due date here if I wanted to. So now this one is fine, but this one is still overdue. Unfortunately, I can't seem to find a way for ClickUp to give me a notification to say, hey, these suggested times are actually after the due date, which was inside of ClickUp still the day before. If I come into here, you see it's still the 19th, still then. I can't see on the calendar that this is actually after the due date. Now, I know I'm biased. I've been using Morgen far longer than ClickUp, and I also work for Morgen, but ClickUp seems to be a project management tool that has calendar features, whereas Morgen is a planner tool with calendar focus first with some tasks on the side, and does integrate with ClickUp and Google Tasks and other external integrations, bringing those tasks in. So if you want to try out Morgen, have a free trial with Morgen, there's a link in the description below.